Boom, hey internets, 3 reasons. Number 1, flaw in business model. Number 2, you have to constantly recreate product. And number 3, it takes a lot of time and money. These are all reasons I'm about to go in depth in this video on why you should not start a clothing brand. Jon Phenom, clothing brand mentor, over 23 years designing apparel, working in fashion. And so I talk about this in kind of a short form. This comes up a lot in consulting as well. Some of these little parts where I'm like, it's such a pain in the ass, this portion of the business. And there's a lot of different portions of the business. So I decided to make a actual list, like a logistical list of reasons why it's difficult to start a clothing company. This is obviously why I say you should be passionate about this. And it's so cliche, passion for fashion. It's so cliche. It's like, it's corny. It's super cringy at this point. But the aptitude needs to be there to really want to be in the business, because there's a lot of other businesses that you could start that would be a lot easier. So going right into it, business model, okay? Business model is the first thing I'm going to tackle. There's so much more efficient business model, and I'm just gonna say anything digital. If you start anything that's digital, that exists here, you're probably watching me on your phone or your computer, something that stays digital product, right? Or if you do an app, if it's a SaaS company, right? All of those are things that you can build the whole team online, right? If you're not dealing with physical product, and physical product that needs to touch multiple hands, meaning multiple vendors, whatever, any different group. Maybe you outsource like logistics, like 3PL. That's another group you have to deal with. If you keep a digital model of business, that's gonna be so much easier. But because it's a product-based business, you're going to be tied to that product. Number 2 with business model is it's difficult to scale, okay? And you can see how other companies have done really well and been really successful, but what you don't see is probably the other 100 companies that failed to scale because it's very difficult. Again, I'm gonna harp on it, we're talking about physical product. So you're buying more t-shirts, you're buying more hoodies, you're applying your graphics onto those things however you do it, whether it's domestic or international, and then it takes more manpower, right? Division of labor to grow that as well, and they need to be the right people who understand that category of what they're working with to grow that as well. And the third point for this grouping is that all can be very complex, right? It's not very easy. You can argue that with a digital business that's complex as well, but it just becomes niches inside of the niche, right? To understand the flow of that, or to teach someone from scratch and have them take it from there. You know, employing or getting the right employee, the right candidate for a role is becoming increasingly harder because there's more choices, including working online for a job. And so anything that might require you to be physically there also might be a point of difficulty. So growing and scaling all of this can be complex. Okay, chapter 2 is product, okay? Product is recreated, okay? It's recreated every single day. If I had a company that just sold markers, I just sold these markers, or I sold pens, you know, or I sold pencils, you don't really have to change that much. You know, the coding outside of it, maybe you can make a variation or two, but if you think about it, I have an entire product, right, on Clothing Brand Academy that's just how do I do style numbers. That's just how I do style numbers, because I use this term, I give birth to each product. Each design has its own life, and then each design has its own variation, right? So like, let's say the style number is X. I create this design, a t-shirt graphic in X, but I also want to offer it in a hoodie. Now that might be XH for X hoodie. And then there could be XHB, right? S for the color black and S for the size. Those are called variants or variations of the product. And I just now created not one, but at least 3 or 4 different variation style numbers that are talking about the same design. Does that make sense? I made 3 or 4 because there's going to be small, medium, large. And let's say you offer it in black and you offer it in a white hoodie. Now that's XH and WSML for small, medium, large, right? I'm going a little deep on this example, but to show you, look how many variations that you have to manage rather than just selling a pen or a marker or a pencil, right? You don't really have to recreate that much. That's product based as well, but you just need to sell a bunch of pencils or pens, just that one product. So now once the product has a good vendor, good production, you just need to focus on selling as many of those as possible and finding, you know, business development, like finding new people to purchase or new companies, etc. Second point in product is you need space. You need space to either create the product, like if I'm doing some of my transfer work, but also if I'm doing cut and sew overseas and getting that landed here from China or Vietnam or South America or wherever my vendor is, I need a warehouse where I could put those and that my staff can do the fulfillment to pick and ship the items that are sold online and then shipped out to my customer. I need space for all of those items, and they're not small items. Again, if I was just selling pencils, I wouldn't need that big a space, or a big space would facilitate millions and millions of that product because the product is small and easy to ship. No, we're dealing with jackets, we're dealing with t-shirts, we're dealing with headwear, right? We're dealing with all kinds of things that can be different variable sizes as well. But let's say like a jacket, like a winter jacket, a snow jacket is something that you offer. That's gonna take a lot of room. And so many units of that, 1,000 units of that is gonna require a lot of space. Number 3 under product is you need to account for old product. So spoilage, if you have a small percentage of product that you can't sell because something was done incorrectly on it from your vendor, or maybe you did it incorrectly, so maybe you have 100 shirts that are no good. So how are you gonna then get rid of them to create space? Also, if something is in an old season, I dealt with this with a lot of the brands I work for. It is horrible, and I'm not calling anyone out individually, but it is horrible to deal with closeout buyers. No disrespect, again, to a closeout buyer. I think it's needed, of course, and it's an interesting job, but to deal with closeout buyers can be very difficult because you know and they know that you're one of the last chances for getting any type of monetary value for that product. So they're gonna go very low, right? And you're gonna try to see what you can squeeze out of them. But yeah, you have to figure out what to do with that old product because you're gonna create a new product in another month or so, or weeks, or maybe even days from now. Okay, chapter 3, or the third part of this, is it takes a lot of time and money. Now you can argue every business is gonna take time and money, and you would be correct. But having dealt with apparel brands for over 20 years, over 2 decades, I'm just saying many things can hold up you getting to the next milestone or to the next point in your business plan. It can be held up for so many different reasons, both internal and external. And one quick example of this is any brand that launches is going to need to do media, because media, as I argue in my updated version of pre-launch, sales and marketing are kind of the same thing. If you storytell correctly on your reels, on your social media, on TikTok and Instagram and all the media outlets that you need to be on, then you can sell by just selling your story. But now you become a little bit more of a cinematographer. Doing marketing is really doing good video, doing rich video. And when I say rich, that's very creative in putting these campaigns together, and there's also quantity involved. So you become basically a studio, a media company. If you notice with non-beta, I say it's an apparel and media company, and that's literal. I'm like, you have to storytell. And so in order to just sell the product, you then have to kind of mind switch and be like, okay, what's really good creative that we need to organize? I mean, you got to sketch all these things out because you can't do one a month, right? Some of your competitors are putting out 3 reels a day. So what is that going to take over a week and over a month, right? You have to brainstorm a lot of different storylines and create all of that, all of it just to sell the new season drop, or the new hoodie, the new jacket, the new hat, etc., right? And so because there's so many variants, right, of like what it is, like a hat you're gonna sell differently than wearing a jacket or wearing a shirt, right? Whether it's individual or an entire collection, capsule, or one drop, whether that's 2 or 3 items or 1 item, there's so many variables involved. And again, you're just trying to sell it, right? You're just trying to sell the concept of it. And as that example, it's just time and money that's involved in just the process of selling. So wanted to give you that example. Comment down below, but you got questions, drop that down below as well, or just email me here and I can help you with your journey for your brand as well. Now, if you are passionate about clothing, if none of this phases you and you're like, dude, I need to do a brand, you're the right person to start a clothing brand, and I can help you on the journey if you have questions. See you guys on the next one. Peace.